call to action with Jonathan. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
1, 2, 3. Come on.
Once again, we're here with Debbie Brilling and Jonathan Brilling at the Auditory Verbal Center, and I have questions about the statistics. How many children are affected by hearing loss?
1 to 5 out of 1,000 will be affected by hearing loss.
That's 5 out of every 1,000 children born are affected with a hearing loss.
Yeah. It's a staggering number, and 92% of those kids born with a hearing loss are born to hearing parents. Hearing loss comes about various different ways, from medication to hereditary to syndromes, all kinds of different reasons, chronic ear infections.
And how important is it that a child born with a hearing deficiency start auditory verbal therapy?
Great question, extremely important. Children that are born with a hearing loss, whether it's mild to profound, if you don't treat that hearing loss, will end up with social and developmental delays. You want to fit a child with hearing aids as young as 6 weeks old.
6 weeks?
6 weeks. And if they're profoundly deaf, you can get an implant, cochlear implant, by the time they're a year old. You want to start therapy as soon as possible, as soon as you find out there's a hearing deficiency of some sort. So even the mild kids need some kind of therapy. So we specialize in listening. That's what auditory verbal therapy is. We start as young as 6 weeks. They're going to stay with us for 2 to 5 years, depending on the degree of the loss and if there's other disabilities, because very often there is. But when they graduate from the program, they're going to be age appropriate expressively and receptively to a normal hearing child, mainstream in a regular classroom, needing no additional help other than their own hearing equipment by the time they're 5 years old.
That's truly amazing. From what I understand, the research I did preparing, a child with even mild hearing deficiencies loses about 50% of the discussion in a classroom.
They do.
So that's very important. But let's go back to that 6 weeks. So children are born. There's testing on their health. Is there currently hearing tests done on newborns that can inform parents about hearing deficiencies?
So what's happened, and pretty much all of the U.S. has this, where every child born in the U.S. is, in most states, are tested for a hearing loss before they leave the hospital. So if they refer, meaning fail that test, then they're asked to go for a follow-up test within a couple of weeks, just to confirm that loss, because you could have had a false positive. If you fail again, then you would go into auditory brainstem response, which is the way we diagnose a child that is, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever age, for that hearing loss, and immediately fit them with hearing aids at that point.
And right now, the universal practice, or is there a universal practice of informing them of options for treatment?
That's the sad part. Unfortunately, no. There should be a universal method of saying this is different forms of communication, but most parents don't find out that a deaf child can actually learn to hear and speak. So we've got to get out there and educate people. It depends on the family's needs. Not any one mode of communication suits all families. It's up to the family to make that choice. It is absolutely a family's choice, whether they want to do total communication, sign language, or listening spoken language. For me, I chose listening spoken language. I wanted my children to be in our hearing world.
But just to reiterate, the option of auditory verbal therapy is not universally given.
It's not, and not at all. In fact, most parents don't even know how to find a therapist. We're very limited. It's a very specialized field. There's roughly 500 to 560 certified speech language pathology that has gone for that extra certification in auditory verbal therapy in the world.
So what you're saying is only a certified auditory verbal therapist could help a child with profound deficiency in hearing learn to speak and to properly hear.
Right.
And there's only 545 at this point that are
around the world.
Around
that are
world.
speech language pathologists that work in a clinic environment like this. There's another 300 or so teachers of the deaf who use auditory verbal techniques in the classroom setting, but they're not doing therapy. They're
Well,
classroom.
Again, preparing for this interview, I did a little research, and currently there are over 3 million children that have
Right.
deficiency in hearing, and there's only 545 therapists. And how many clinics and centers could they possibly even be in?
Unfortunately, there's just not that many centers like the Auditory Verbal Center in Atlanta. Typically, you have therapists scattered throughout, like in hospitals, and work with the deaf and hard of hearing. That is one reason why we launched teletherapy, so we could reach out to all the kids, no matter where you're at, to have the benefit of a certified auditory verbal therapist.
So, to help you promote your cause and your mission is to create awareness
Yes.
of the challenges with children who are born with profound hearing deficiencies, and to let them know that there is an option. So that's informing the medical community, and it might be something that needs to be done legislatively.
Yes.
And then the other part of the challenge is, even once they know, there's only 545. So now you have to bring this to universities and colleges that there's a career
Right.
based on
So,
providing those services.
it takes a lot of clinical hours. All our staff are certified therapists. So when you graduate with your master's in speech language pathology, it is then 3 more years of training to get certified to sit for the exam to be an auditory verbal therapist.
Wow. Debbie, I just sat down with one of your teletherapy therapists. We had a great conversation. It's amazing how they can interact with them even though they're not able to come into this facility, because you mentioned not everybody can come and there's not
Right.
as many centers as there should be.
Unfortunately, not everybody can come for various different reasons. It
Right.
may not be that you live in a rural area.
Right.
You could live in the city of Atlanta, but the traffic prevents you from getting here.
Right, or you have other children or other
Right.
responsibilities.
Or you live in
Right.
another state, because we can service anybody no matter where they're at. The outcomes are the same. You are given your therapy plan a few days in advance. You have
Right.
same time every week for an hour. You log in, have a live therapy session with our therapist, and then continue to do this every day at home till your child is age appropriate.
Right.
We thought that was really fascinating because Nick and I, being on the Podcast World Tour, traveling around the U.S. and potentially around the world, that's the amazing of the technology, right? That brings to this
Right.
to this model,
Right.
is that they don't have to be right here in the facility. And if you're a podcaster or a parent, anywhere in the country, around the world, this is a service that you can plug into. It doesn't have to be in your local community. You can reach out to John and Debbie or to the center here, and that was amazing. I sat in and watched the
Right.
teletherapy session. It was just
Yeah.
phenomenal, right? It's as
Kinda
if they're in
cool.
the same room.
Yep,
Yeah.
it is.
Right.
It's pretty amazing, and these kids get the benefit of learning to hear and speak without the visual need of sign language or lip reading, which
Right.
is awesome.
We want to thank Artie for kind of leading this conversation, John and Debbie for being here. Obviously, my sidekick. Is it sidekick, Nick? Or?
Sidekick works,
Nick.
yeah.
All right, Jonathan, tell us how people would find, what's their call to action, or how would they find out about you get involved? And get involved both from a parent, maybe what are other opportunities?
Okay, so you can find out everything you can on our website, which is www.abchears.org, or you can give us a call, which I'll go ahead and say the phone
Sure.
number, which is 404-633-8911. We have several different things you can get involved in. You can donate toys, you can get involved with our fundraising events like our gala or golf tournaments. You can also find ways to get involved in terms of our board or young professionals board. But the key point is, the main thing to take away is to spread the word. Let people know there's a way to teach a child to hear and speak. And thankfully, they're doing this world podcast tour. You can find out that teletherapy is a great way to help all the children around the world.
Awesome. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.